So nice to see everybody's beautiful face. Thank you so much for coming. You know, I kept getting like amazing questions. Like I literally got so many, and
Well,
That's
I,
fantastic.
I felt like we had to celebrate this together.
Absolutely.
Like we have to do this. Like why would a pandemic stop awesomeness from keep being awesome?
Man, like the Brady Bunch.
Guys,
Well, I love that you're doing this tonight. This is fantastic, and thank you.
yeah.
no,
Yeah,
it's,
thank you.
it's the
100.
best. First of all, guys, we nailed it. I mean, I you know, it's a movie that I've been wanting to watch because of the subject, right?
Right.
And what it represents, and especially during the pandemic, like it became like even more important to watch it. So it kind of like we waited a while, but it came out at the right time.
Yeah.
I think, right? I mean, I know I kept checking with everybody, like, do you know anything? What's happening?
I know, because we felt like we didn't hear for a long time. I was like,
Hmm.
what's going on? What's happening? It's one of those things you go like, what happened?
I
But
Yeah.
think
like
they
you
were
said tonight, I
perfecting
think
it.
and the timing is just so right on the money right now with everything that's happening.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad it got out, and I'm glad it got sold, and I'm glad people get to watch it now, which is great.
Yes. So I'm gonna start with the first question. So I'm so
Before you
happy.
start,
Yes.
I want to know, Walter, are you in a cave?
He was in the
No,
mine
but
shaft earlier.
No, but I can be. I can be. Would you like me to be in the?
He was literally in a cave before
No,
we
he's in the copper
started
mine.
dating.
He was in the copper mine.
Like
There he is.
No, I am.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
showed
yeah,
up
now-
like that, and I'm like, where the hell are you?
That is so
But this-
perfect.
I like this place that we went to.
That's
Nice.
Arizona
That's
without the
real.
heat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And my hotel room was nice too.
You know,
Oh, I miss
I
that
have a
hotel.
couple I have a couple of pictures of us during that little trip that we did, and we were so hot that I was like, I better
So
not
hot.
post this because we were like, oh, we were like really,
So hot.
it was
Hottest
so
day
freaking
ever.
hot. It was too much.
It was
Okay.
warm.
So here's the question. This film feels like a magnifying glass, zooming in on a small town's narrative of a much bigger systemic issue. How do you experience that while preparing and filming? Were there any specific moments for you when this story connected to the bigger picture?
I think it connected to the bigger picture right away. I mean, as soon as I read the script, I think it's so relevant to what's going on today at the border and with the whole situation. And it's a serious movie, in that it speaks to what's going on this moment right now, the urgency of what that situation is, and it's an important movie. And I guess if I had to pick a specific moment, it's the first day you're on the set, first day you're on the set, it's always magical because, you put on the wardrobe, you whatever makeup it is, and the set, that never ceases to amaze me, and to the wonderment of make-believe, even though this is, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that it's based on a true story, or based on
Yes,
true
not that
events or
far off
not.
from the reality.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that wonderment, I mean, for me, I'm always, even when I'm on a set, I'm always touching things, how did they make this wall here? It's styrofoam or whatever. But I think that's to answer your question. For me, it was when I read the script, and then being on the set the first day, it seeing all the characters, doing the first scene, the first dialogue, it all comes together. Did I answer the question?
It did. Yes, Didi.
For me, it was intriguing from the get-go to want to sort of dive in to illuminating the whole police corruption situation, which since we shot the movie has been highlighted and sort of blown into huge relief against what we sort of have grown up, or what me as a privileged white person has grown up experiencing with the police. And what attracted me to the script certainly was the possibility of illuminating those tensions and that systemic sort of corruption. It was interesting when I actually got to see the film, because I was a little, it was interesting to see the whole cut of the film together. And I almost wish there had been a little bit more resolution with the police department. But I really felt that it was interesting to see my character portrayed as sort of the evil person, because from where I was sitting when I was approaching the part, it was, you know, that she really did believe in her cops, and she really didn't think there was anything going on, and she really truly thought she was standing up for right and justice. And despite all the political overtones of playing along and all that kind of stuff, I thought the woman at the center was actually trying to do good, and was probably very surprised. But in the film, all the police were grouped into one category, you know, and so that was an interesting thing for me to experience, and wasn't necessarily what I had thought it was going to turn out to be when I stepped onto the set.
True.
Yeah.
That kind of leads to this question that is kind of like it together. It's merged, which is, how hard was it for you to play a character that, and this is for all of us, that deals with some of the racism, you know, either, you know, for the Latino community, or like, you know, just being in the place of privilege, and how, especially with the times that we're living, and from this I can say that when Juan was talking about your character Levinsky, Ricky Johnson, it was originally written for a Latino man. And you came in and you did this beautiful read that he sent to me. And I said, you know, I really like this guy, because then you have an outsider that is not Latino, that is dealing with his own issues. It would it will just like give layers to the movie that, you know, Chief Collins will have to deal with that. You know, Bradford, we have to deal with that. We have to deal with that. And even John has to deal with it. Like, it's like, you know, it's exactly what you were saying, Didi. It's like, it's just raising the stakes. And it's like, how can we make this more effective? And obviously your audition tape was brilliant, but it really helped look at that role from a different perspective. And, you know, and obviously with what has happened in the past year, it has magnified that character. Like, it's even more prevalent now, right?
Yeah, you're looking at like maybe like a year before the Black Lives Matter movement and everything happened. And
my gosh,
we have a Black police officer who's escaping a corrupt past, going to a border town, dealing with a corrupt immigration system, where there's racism upon racism. You know, I drew upon my own past, for my part particularly. When I came, you know, I was an immigrant to this country, and I wasn't born in the United States. And when I came over as a Black person, to an immigrant town, farm worker town, also very similar.
Wow.
Yeah, Immokalee, Florida, where the capital of tomato picking is. I was bullied. I was picked on by Black Americans who sometimes saw us as immigrants, even though we were also Black, as Haitian Americans.
Wow.
So it's just interesting layers that I had to draw upon, like trying to understand my past and reckon with what I had dealt with in terms of racism, not just as a Black person, but as a foreign person. So now in this film, I got a chance to combine the two.
Which is weird, right? It's like, it's so cool.
So it's all these layers, and it's there's lots to draw on, and how do you see these people? And it's like, you know, okay, yeah, and what are you when you put that badge on? Are you a new race, the blue race, you know? Are you like, you know, is blue before Black? And which is a big question that's been brought up, you know, like, and so for me, I used all that conflict, and I used all that tension in every decision that I would make, and I would just think about like, like, look what you did in the past and look what you're going to do now, and maybe this is a chance to fix things. Maybe you can change. This could be the moment that you change things. That's how I approached everything.
Mm. How about you, Walter? It's a lot of pleasure to play Bradford, especially now dealing with those issues and make it a real person. And because from Didi's perspective, she thought she was playing by the rules, but you were actually the problem, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, for me, my whole approach is just to make it about a real person, not make it about the villain. And meeting with a lot of police officers and having friends who are police officers, and just kind of understanding how, I don't know, they're regular people, and Bradford doing some very serious mistakes. It was almost like a representation of the banality of evil. How just one thing on top of another snowballs out of control, and someone's trying to control it and can't. I was looking at the cover of The Week magazine, and it had Derek Chauvin kneeling on George Floyd's grave. You guys see this cover of this magazine? It's just amazing. You're seeing him like in this image, and it's just like, oh my God, it's like, how do you play somebody that is going down that rabbit hole that no one's gonna like? But you can't, for me, just not trying to approach it as trying to be evil or trying to be those things, but trying to be somebody, real, which is hard in the film because a lot of them, I think my scenes and even like Dee Dee's scenes, we're only seeing these characters in uniform. You really don't ever get to see them outside of the uniform. So immediately, you are associating them with your idea of police. So, I would love a mini series, of course, of this show. I would love to see more of the lives of these people. So it wasn't just the villain and the good, or the good and the bad. I would love to see more of this mixture. I'd love to see the moments of redemption for characters like Bradford. But yeah, it's something really, and also very difficult playing a police officer who after reading the script has done such terrible things. And trying to represent police, not coming at it from my own opinion. Like I want to be honest with that. And I know I'm going to have friends who are police officers who are going to watch it and be like, no. But I also have friends who are police officers who are going to watch it and be like, yeah, I know that guy. I know exactly that guy. That guy was with me in training, and that guy turned into one of these bad apples. And now that person's no longer a cop, or that person's in jail, or that person's still working. So that's what's fucked up too. So knowing that. I know amazing cops, and there also are these guys that are out there in a uniform with a gun and a badge, and maybe shouldn't be. But playing that person, I can't. I'm not thinking that I shouldn't be a cop. I'm trying to separate myself from my judgment and just be a real person. But it's hard. The first time you see me, I run over a guy.
And here comes Bradford. Whoa.
Yeah. Hey.
What was the biggest challenge about bringing this character to life with all these layers for all of us? I think you kind of said it yourself already, Walter. It's separating that. But what about for Sal, Carlos, Didi? What was
for me,
challenging that part?
For me, it was challenging because I felt and sometimes I felt that we were in two different movies. Especially being Latino, I was thinking, wow, I really want to be part of that story that's dealing with the immigration and but my part really, I felt, was to bring a likeness to the relationship between me and John. And I just felt like I was always like torn, like, God, I this is what I should do, but I really want to do this. And so it was always like kind of like a give and take. But I felt like my relationship with him had to bring some kind of likeness to the situations, and knowing what was happening on the other side of the movie, it was frustrating sometimes for me to not be able to be in those conversations. But I think my thing was to really create a relationship with him, with Aiden, and bring a lightness to the subject.
What about you, Sal?
No, and you definitely did do that, Carlos.
Totally.
Thanks.
In terms of, what was the question?
What was the most challenging thing that you had to deal with to prepare for the role? Like, what was the
Oh,
biggest challenge?
it's huge, to have somebody murder your son. I have two children, so you draw on that, but it's still different. I mean, it's for me, it was trying to not to play the stereotypical person that loses someone, and but yet you're fighting for this person. What is it that you think, what is it that you're fighting for? And for me it was he's fighting for his son, for some kind of justice for his son, and that he doesn't want his life to be just in vain, and he says it at one point, right? They killed him, they left him there like a dog. And so that I used all that was already written there, and I let that affect me, and try to convey that.
And it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I actually translated those scenes, and it was very well translated in the scene while we were doing the scene to John, to Aiden, and it was really, for me, I don't know why I had this heaviness shooting this movie. I felt like relief, this sense of relief. Actually, when we started reshooting a couple of scenes, you and I, Sal, I had this heaviness go back to me, and when I watched the movie, I realized why that was, and it's that this character really kind of like bounced back and forth between the the Latino world and the American world, and she's like the bridge that connects them together. She depends on so much on Chief Collins. Her mission depends so much on everybody, but she doesn't go directly to the source because she knows that that's not the most effective way to handle that situation, right? So
you're in both worlds. You're in both worlds.
Yeah, and I felt like I was dealing with that kind of, because I felt like Carlos, your character, was dealing with that a little bit, but
It was.
But mine was like more like the justice, the fight that
you were the legality of it. You were the legality of it.
Yeah,
I was more the morality of
exactly. Yeah, and that was, I felt like when we wrapped the movie, I felt like, oh, I realized why that was, and it was so in the back of my mind that it didn't become conscious until I watched the movie. Guys, this film, she says here, it talks a lot about what's right and wrong, right? What's the right thing, what's the wrong thing, and how the news and police, it's like our biggest subject today. As actors, have you ever been morally challenged with a role that you have to interpret?
I can say that's pretty much all the time, for me. I mean, this honestly might be one of the first roles where I was really just like, people have been telling me, hey, it turns out you were the good guy in this one. Like,
wow,
right.
Holy
You're
cow.
Like, damn, thanks.
That's deep.
Right? Like that.
I know that feeling.
I've always played the heel, and I think that we're put in, actors were put in positions where we have to just go there, and we have to understand people who we are not. Sometimes people in these movies and these TV shows, they do really dark things, and we have to approach it with like a bit of professionalism, and everybody has a different approach as to how to get there. But you know that morally that it's difficult. It's hard to get there sometimes. Everybody has a different approach, but I think that every actor has to deal with that a little bit, and like some of these choices that I had to make as Ricky Johnson, and like these lies had to be like you know, like I'm lying about, you know, what I saw, and it's a big deal. It's not right. It's not right, but you've got to have a reason and action why you want to do that, because everybody does something for a reason. So
Right.
if you can, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's the same thing, because I've played a lot of bad guys and a lot of,
Hmm.
and you have to find the humanity in the character that you play. No matter how bad this person is or what they've done, you have to find some kind of humanity and work from that point into
Yeah.
playing the character. Because if it's just evil for evil's sake, the audience is not gonna, unless the guy is just, but I mean, I think everybody has some kind of humanity that they're struggling with or that they haven't dealt with. But I think the having compassion, empathy, and that, no matter how bad the character is important to have in a part.
Do you think that changed us as actors after we finished that journey? Do you think that kind of like there's something in us that is a little bit transformed inside? Because I'm not like a person that loves guns, but I'm in a show that deals with guns, and I had to wear the gun, and in this show I was not that challenged because she was into justice, but I don't know. I feel like there's as actors, we put in a position that is not a natural position, right? We have to interpret and be truthful to somebody that we disagree with, and that I feel like we seek somehow that conflict, that inner conflict, to resolve something, to understand something. And that's funny enough is a question that it keeps coming back here. Is because somehow we have tapped into our audience with that conflict too, because we went deep into it, and they are questioning themselves. So they are like, aren't you questioning that guy? Aren't you affected by it personally? And it's interesting. And that's why I feel like understanding a little bit more of, for example, Chief Collins, if she finds out that she's being on the wrong path this whole time, misguided, how would she use that power to turn her back around, because what's interesting about the movie, even though we don't see what could go wrong with her, she had those quiet moments looking at Sal outside, in which she breathes really heavily. You can see that she has something inside that bothers her deeply.
It's it's interesting you should mention that, because one of the scenes that was cut from the movie was a scene that the director Juan was very, very adamant about working toward. And it was a scene where the son was out. I think, Sal, you were there. No, you weren't there. The son was there at the altar that was created outside of the police station. And the Chief Collins goes up and says, "I'm sorry about your father."
Right.
And for me, it was a really defining moment in terms of the arc of the character, finally sort of acknowledging.
Huge.
And it was nowhere to be found in the movie. And it had been sort of the scene that he was pointing me toward, and would always remind me of, and was excited. So I don't know what happened to it, or if it'll make the extended cut version. I don't think so. It clearly didn't serve the film in some way. Yeah. So I found that very, very fascinating.
That's interesting, because as actors, we do the work and we see, and then it's out of our hands. We don't know what the end cut is going to be. But while you're doing it, you're looking at, like you were looking at that moment, that was the end of your full circle.
Absolutely.
And for some reason it doesn't make the movie, then your character feels like it's like, oh God, I wish he would have. Yeah. And that, that's the control that we don't have as actors.
Similar thing too, Didi, with
frustrating.
Me, I pushed real hard to have a scene added with Bradford, and Denai helped me try to make this push, and we shot it. The very last scene I shot was just me by myself in the desert, just standing there, just like looking out and just being a normal person, not any agenda, not twirling any mustache or anything,
right.
And trying to be as honest in the portrayal and the small moments, just a small moment. I thought in my mind it would have been perfect just to watch the full circle as this character, just a little glimpse of something. And again, for whatever reasons that didn't make it, but maybe it also will appear in the extended cut.
Our 4-hour version of Spike.
Yeah, our Zack
will be
Snyder.
brought to you by-
or a 2-hour version of Spike.
Yeah, but I remember that in the scene, Didi, when now that you mention it, that you actually walk up to the little boy. But I remember looking at it, and that moment that you have in the car, that you look. I don't know if that's the continuation to you getting out. I don't know. But I remember you looked and you actually took a deep breath, and I saw, oh, she is actually questioning something. She feels something, and I.
The next
weird.
moment from that scene was me opening.
Was
the
you
car
getting
door and
out?
getting in.
Oh my God.
wow.
That's crazy. Ah. Well,
Wow.
it's weird because you feel something is cooking inside that you don't know, or
Well, that's
something is
good.
bothering you, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, if you perceived a little shift of some sort or a crack in the plates, then that's great, and then I guess
That's called good acting. That's
he
called
was
Yeah.
successful. It's called really nice editing, is what that is. But
I
yeah,
perceived it. I remember that moment, Didi, and I was like, I could tell like, oh, something's happening here, and I know that the next moment it might be the one where she. But you know what was great about that moment was that I was like, like she is so tough that she's not gonna let that feeling get to her,
mhm.
and she's not gonna like let that override, the the job, and it was such a good battle to watch, like show empathy or be the boss.
That was
Right,
actually the
right.
only time we see that character in a vulnerable, like in a floating space. The rest is just a mask of like, this is how it works. Here's my uniform, and it was the only time, and I really appreciated it so much.
Yeah.
Just it's funny, like those little moments really change your experience from a character's like as an audience, right? Because I looking at everybody's journey, that was a turning point for me. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
funny that you actually get out of the car.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed it too, Didi.
Oh, that's crazy. You
That's
too.
probably why.
Yeah.
That's probably why he cut the scene, because he probably figured this is all we need. I mean, I'm presuming that's what happened, but I mean, it's a very noticeable, reaction that's noted. I mean, I noted it, so maybe that's why. I don't know, but maybe he figured, well, we don't need it now that we got that.
Right.
But it's a credit to you.
It's cool. Yeah. Which character would you choose to do a spin-off movie of, and why?
Wow.
We're
You
all
spin off
actors.
every character.
We're all actors.
Everybody.
We're gonna
You
all
spin
do
everybody gets a
films.
restaurant show.
Everybody gets a spin off. Everybody.
I think the canine, I guess.
You gotta spin off.
If Bishop Colin goes to like Vegas, then Diana goes to tell story, and then Bradford is like, what the hell? And then we have to open another newspaper. It's just funny.
No, I'll say that there are great little. If there was a mini series, there could be about 4 or 5 of them.
Mhm.
Do that.
There could be this powerful Latina attorney who goes in and fights for justice. There could be this, this powerhouse police chief. There could be, this crazy newspaper that publishes stories and puts people out there. Amazing relationship. These two desert cops and their lives behind the scenes. Like it could be this the unionization of this mine, the whole story behind that, and the families behind it. Like Sal being the dad. There could be like 5 or 6. Everything was just this great
Yeah.
show.
It's true.
What would be cool too would be after this happened, follow Walter's family and follow Walter's story of what happens to him and how does he, how does he rejoice and how does he go on with his life after that? Because it's true what he says. There's a lot of cops that, you know, you never see them at their house. You never see how it affects
Never.
the family.
That's right.
You never
That's
see
right.
how it affects that side of the people. And I would love to see that in any show, really, because it's important to show. You know, it's important to show. So I mean, if you want to talk about the series, there's so many directions you can go with this one.
Yeah.
You know?
There are
that
so
would be
many
cool.
possibilities. I loved Denai and Carlos, your relationship at the paper. I was curious about seeing more of that. And I just personally am madly in love with Sal. So his character, I wanted to see more of him and
Totally.
more of his story. And so that would be my vote for the spinoff, as long as, you know, the chief can come and bust in your ass and break the windows every once in a while.
Well, I vote for the
Sal
dog.
goes to law school, gets a degree, takes over
Exactly.
and takes over the town, representing all the immigrants. They all go unionized.
So good.
That's it.
You were saying, Sal? You were saying something?
No, I was saying I voted for the dog. The dog could get a spinoff.
How were you
A police
inspired?
dog.
How were you inspired by your scene partner in the film?
Oh, that's easy. You know, I mean, I think that's why we all do this. I mean, it's fun. I mean, ultimately, even when you're playing a bad guy, I mean, yeah, you have to find the humanity in it, but it's fun playing the bad guy. It really, you know, because there's, you know, you're not following the rules. You're breaking the rules, you know, so, but the question was, you're playing, and that's just it, you know. I mean, all of us are here because we like each other, you know. If it was a terrible experience, none of us would be here. And I think we like hanging out with each other because we like what we do, we enjoy it, and there's a camaraderie, and we're all in the same boat, you know. We're all in the trenches together, and we know the all that goes with being an actor, you know, the insecurity, the trying to find the magic in the scene, you know, trying to find the moment that clicks, putting it all together, the dialogue, the direction, the lights, everything, you know. And I think for me, it's always looking into the other actor's eyes and playing off of that, playing to them and playing from them, you know, whatever you're getting and you're returning. And it's that connection, right? So that's what I enjoy. I enjoy the connections that we make on and off the set, which is really unique in this profession.
Yeah.
I can say,
Yes,
sorry,
go,
no,
Didi.
go ahead. No, Denai, please. You're not talking nearly enough.
You know, I have to say that for me, I completely agree with you, but I tell you more. We actually, Didi and I, we never worked together. And meeting her on the movie, like, even though when we're not even having the experience in front of the camera. Oh yeah, we did work together in the courtroom, but we never talked to each other. We were in the same space, but we never. And you know, the intention. There's some magic when we travel to a place to make a movie. There's something that never gets old. I don't know if it's me, but I get nervous. I get excited. You know, it's hot and we have breakfast and we start meeting. It's like, it's such a magical, it's never the same. And that in itself is its own world. I feel like, and this one, somehow, I just loved each one of you. I feel like, I mean, I haven't even seen the movie back then. I was like, oh, I just love what we're doing. And I didn't know what was happening, obviously. But even though, you know, the ones that I didn't work with, I just felt like there's something inside that we had to be there to tell this story. And that is, it's very inspiring. It makes you like want to give your best the next day. It's I don't know if people feel that in offices and in, you know, places, other jobs, you know, but I feel like so lucky to be a creator and to create good stories with people that you right away meet and right away you love. It's like, oh my God, maybe that's why artists are called crazy, because we have this very sensible connection, right? We're so open all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Didi, you
Well,
were saying.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
uh,
I
You know,
forgot.
for me, it's funny because for me, whenever I go on location to work, it's like a mini circus. Like I do better work on locations than I do when I work in LA. I think because I
mm,
have, you're having to deal with all your daily stuff and the thing your life. But when you go away somewhere and you meet the circus with your other little circus performers and you're out here
yeah,
doing this thing,
Mhm.
there's a certain magic about that connection when you're out of your ordinary situation and you're in the place where you're going to do the movie or whatever. I think there's a whole other like a playground feeling that you all going to go play at this place and we can be
Yes.
ourselves and be crazy and you know and back to that conversation. Working with you tonight was, for me, was interesting because we, as Latinos, we don't get to play these kind of parts,
No.
and whenever we get to play like either lawyers or just regular people, it's a breath of fresh air for me because it's something that I can see in the future, that we don't have to be stereotypical playing these kind of parts or that kind of part. We could just be anybody, and this we happen to be Latino. So working with you was a joy. Just the feeling that we were playing these parts that could have been anybody.
It's true. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And you
I
too,
have to
Yeah.
Sal.
I
Yes.
have to say, even though he's not here to defend himself, um, and other than Walter and Jean Baptiste,
hmm
I love playing the scenes with Aiden because he was so present and so committed and so intense. And he, he's so part of the iconography of film in general in my life because I imagine we're about the same age, and I grew up watching him, and his passion for in the scenes that we had was it was almost scary to have to meet that. And so
yeah.
that was a really really wonderful experience just as an actor to walk away with. And I totally am all in with the sandbox theory, Carlos.
Yeah.
I love going on location to shoot things because I do think it creates its own special world,
Yeah.
and it is dedicated. It's got a kind of dedication that you don't have when everyone's driving from home and going home
Right.
to their kids and their dogs and their bills and their whatever. When you instead return to the lodge of the desert and are doing laps in the pool at midnight,
In 110
not
degrees.
that I ever did that in the night,
Every night.
every night. And now luckily I know what Walter looks like in a towel.
Hey.
And it's good.
We thumbs up, Walter.
Well, Walter and I were actual like partners, literally partners. So when you say scene partners, it's like that it was like another level. Like, what do you think, Bradford? That what was that like? Because I mean, I remember our audition together. They brought
Oh,
in
you guys
two.
audition? You
Yeah,
guys?
yeah.
Oh, really?
We did a audition together, and they brought in an older guy first, and and I was there for both. I had and I read with both of them, and it was a different dynamic. So it's just think about it like this: cop who's been around for a long time, and he's kind of like new younger guy. I'm gonna tell him what to do, and then Walter came in, and it was just this chemistry. It was just this chemistry, like we had been like riding around in this police car, and we put two chairs next to each other, and we were like and we were driving like this, and we were just talking, and we did that car scene,
Yeah.
and we hit it off, man. Right? Remember that?
Yeah, man, totally. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. I was really, I mean, I was really, I didn't know what to expect going into that audition, because I mean, talk about trying to find the chemistry, between two people, and also being like just trying to create this dynamic. So I felt real at ease with you in those moments. So it made working on the film such a joy because like I trusted you, even though I was, the opposite of you as a character, but like trusted you, you know, as a friend, as an actor in those moments to like go along there with me, you know, and if it's gonna be bad, it's gonna be bad, you know.
Yeah.
Like but yeah, man, I mean, that was something that's really special, and I think that goes to show for a lot of us in this film, we all care about each other, and it's a strange way, the circus that we joined, you know. It's not always like that, but I think that was something really, really wonderful, Levinsky, and that to me is inspirational to look to, you know, to hope you have that connection with somebody going forward, and beautiful, man.
It's
Yeah,
showing
you
the
do.
scenes together, you guys scenes when even when you guys challenge each other, there's something there that you want to watch more. Like, is he gonna really break his heart? I mean, is it gonna be bad? Like, it's these two people, they have a potential to be great together or really terrible. And you know, from my experience working with Aiden, it was cool, and I shared that with you. Aiden is so passionate about his craft, and when I showed up, I remember perfectly well. He said, "I shot with Didi yesterday, and there's something that sticks in my mind when she says, 'You're not a journalist, John.'" And he just kept telling me that line. I don't know what you did to him, but it bugged him so much. And he's like, "I hate it when she said that." And I was like, oh my God. Like, I want to bug him like that. He just kept telling me, like, "She just told me you're not a journalist, John." And he was just acted out. And I would never expected that, because at that time we didn't cross paths. I was like, so when I met you, Didi, I was like, "Oh, you must be Chief Collins," because I heard it was so it's so cute when he said that, and it was the day before that he shot that, and he was still bothered by it. And when I watched the scene, I was like, oh, she kind of like really hit right in his soul. It was so he's that kind of a giver, and he takes in so much too, like and that's a character that is it's constantly in trouble. I mean, here's a question that it brings the comedy side of it, and it's when Carlos, you have a flash camera, and you, I mean,
Right.
and you flash the camera, and
Right.
it was just the comedy relieved of like everything we've been dealing with. Here comes Carlos and just flashes the camera at the wrong
You know, it's funny
people.
because that came out of the relationship that I saw between the real guy and his best friend.
Oh, do you
they
meet
had
his
that
best friend too?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I
met his
didn't
best
meet his
friend.
friend.
Oh yeah. And I based a lot on that relationship. When they saw them together, they were just always busting each other's balls like all of the time. So I thought, like, these guys, no matter what they go through, they're like brothers in a way. You know, they're like that kind of like um and yeah, and at first I thought, like, is this going to be like cheesy, or like, what is it, you know, because I didn't know how the whole movie was going to, you know, just pan out. But again, I just felt like it was really about the relationship that he had with him at the time. um you know, was it too funny? I still feel like maybe wasn't really appropriate for that time, but you know, I went with it and made it real. And you know, again, I just wanted to see if we could bring some kind of lightness with their relationship, and what was, you know, because there was like different movies and within kind of one movie, you know,
Yeah.
and that storyline of what he had to do too. So yeah.
Was the real guy Latino, the best friend?
No, he was just like a regular guy, which again,
Yeah.
that made it even, you know. But there were so many layers that we could have worked. You know, we didn't really have time enough with the characters, but the fact that I was Latino, there could have been so much that we could have really, like, if we had more time to
Yeah.
play with.
The
But I kind of had
real
to
girl
create,
was not
like,
Latina either.
yeah,
Diana's character she was not Latina. She was
yeah. And again,
she's a white
but
girl
that
from
brought,
Arizona.
right,
They changed her to a Latina girl.
yeah. But so many layers now, because you are Latina dealing with the subject matter, the
Yeah.
same thing, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is an unusual. I didn't know that. Do you guys meet your own in-person characters? Like do you meet the Chief Collins, Didi and Lubinsky?
I think I was in a unique situation in terms of the film. I did not have a lot of prep time. I didn't have any prep time. I had you're hired and fly there and shoot. So I didn't meet anybody at all. I met John, of course, or the John's
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, the John's
Joe,
character.
John's character. So no, I did not. And I was just gonna say, I wonder if I would have, if I was given the opportunity. Of course, I would have. I would have. I don't even have to think about it. I don't
Do
know
you
why I
think it would
pretended
have
to think about
helped?
it.
Do you think it would have helped?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Yes. But in another way, you know, sometimes when you have to fly by the seat of your pants and just go completely on instinct, that can serve you as well. I don't want to second guess what that might have been if I'd, you know, had more time to do. I feel like I could have immersed myself much more fully in the whole story. I think that's probably the main thing that I would have gleaned.
Yeah, this is a question. Like, would you have feel? What about you, Levinsky and Walter? Would you have feel? Did you guys meet the real guy? No.
I did not.
Would you have
I
liked to
honestly,
meet him, or?
I honestly, I didn't know there was a real guy. I thought that I talked to Juan about it, and I know that there were certain police officers that were involved in it, and the the whole Chicago storyline was kind of invented.
Mm.
You know, he was kind of a cop that was around, but I did not have a chance to.
No, there wasn't an original Bradford. I talked with Joe, right, and he said that I was the figure of all the bad cops that he had come across in his life or something. But for me, I just I just met with a bunch of cops that I know, that I train with and stuff, and went shooting a couple times with some police officers and some Secret Service agents, which is really cool before the film. And just pick their brains about everything, you know, the good, the bad, the people that they've experienced that kind of strayed away from being honest police. And then talking with those guys in Bisbee, we're shooting the scene where like drugs are being unloaded off the back of my truck, and before we shot that scene, I'm talking with the two cops that were on set with us, and they were telling me all the horror stories about living in Bisbee and about the bad cops and the immigration guys that who do terrible things. And like just shooting the shit with me about stuff that I think they felt comfortable doing because I look like a police officer. But they were they're like, that house over there, like that house. They started giving me all the information about this house across the street, and I was like, whoa, like, should we be here? You know? Yeah, it's fine. But like, you watch like a window kind of like a curtain open and close across the street, and so like but that sort of like cavalier sense that some police have, and trying to like, these guys loved it. They loved like chewing tobacco and spitting and talking to me about being cops and driving through the desert with the lights off, and but we didn't have any. I didn't have any real person in particular. Just focusing on like officers involved in police shootings or even cops who I did a play before this movie called Black Superhero Magic Mama, and I played a police officer. And the whole play was about a police officer who shot a black child who was holding a trophy. And then so I had to kind of go into that world of like horror that was happening before the whole Black Lives Matter movement and everything. But yeah, just trying to understand what it's like to play those guys. But anyway,
pretty intense. What about you, Sal? Do you meet the actual guy that this happened to, or?
No, I mean, Juan never mentioned to me or that that he was alive, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I had no knowledge, so I can't. I would love to have met him, though.
I didn't meet Diana, but I remember when Joe met me, he's like, "Oh my God, you look so different than the real Diana. I wish you were Diana." I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, well, she's like, she was my right hand girl, but I wish you were my right. He's like so hilarious. So then he showed me a picture, and I noticed that she was like a white girl from Arizona that was passionate about the story and actually fought for the rights of the Latino community, and I was just like, oh, I would love to meet her, but at the premiere, right? And then pandemic happened,
right?
And then I never got to meet her. So, but I feel very lucky to be part of this film, because I feel like now more than ever, the Latino community, the African American community, seeing them, playing, playing a cop, like this cop that is like, dealing with the past, the present, and how can he fix the future, and the obstacles, and the Latino community just dealing with injustice, and Aiden John's character in the middle of this place is in a place of power, but doesn't know how to handle it, which happens a lot. And also, the Chief Collins character, that she's also in a place of like, power, but it's blindsided. It's like, it's a movie that it has so much potential of touching those subjects, because they're so deep. That's why spin-offs are like everywhere. it's like all over. But yeah, I noticed that in all the questions that I asked you guys, it had a lot to do with how morally, the last question is like, how would you feel about making this movie today after what we've been through as humans in our own worlds, in our own states, and with the world that we're living? How would you feel about making the movie now? Would you have done something different? I told you that we have good questions.
That's a really good question, because
I would have used my iPhone instead of a camera.
Right? No flash.
No flashing.
I gotta tell you,
that is my question, by the way.
Oh, that's a good one. I would say that I probably wouldn't do it unless I knew that it was attached to some actual social change. I think that it's so important. These topics immigration is such a big issue right now. Like police brutality is so big. There's so much happening that we would have to be focused on creating some actual real change in the real world with what we're building. I think that's the only thing I would do differently now with what happened, knowing what I know now.
I would do it all over again. I don't know that I would do anything differently. I think hindsight is so 2020. That's a rabbit hole I don't wish to explore, but I think this story was so worth telling. And for me, the whole immigration aspect of it was even more interesting than the poisoning. And I think just a desperately needed story to be told. And I had some things going on in my personal life that sort of echoed that whole situation. And so I would do it all over again in a heartbeat, even though I'm was on the wrong side of the fence, as it were, just because I think that's our job as actors, is to tell stories that need to be told. So I would do it again.
What about you, Walter, Carlos, or Sal? Would you do something different now that we know? Because the reason why I asked that question is because everybody touched so much on how morally, like, our jobs as actors, like, how do you feel? But they're talking from a place of today, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're talking from a place of now, and they're like, wow.
But it's also, I'm sorry, Walter, but it's also, isn't that our job to make people question their own set of beliefs? Totally. through what they see reflected in a story? I think that just means it's been successful.
For me, with that question, for me, I feel like I would have loved for my character to be a little bit more involved in the immigration situation. I think because he wasn't written for a Latin person, he was kind of detached a little bit from the actual things that were happening. I would be more involved with the situation, being Latin and understanding what the situation was. Really, I would have a little bit more on that side than what I had. But again, the story, our job is to tell the story, and that's what we're there to say the words and to tell the story. So, but if I had a choice, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I would agree with everybody. I would I would like it to go deeper, a little bit deeper, towards the end, because we see we have this scene with the police and the drugs and the guns, and it's like, whoa, what's happening? What's happening? You know, what out of the blue, from a lot of people that I know who watched it were like, oh my God, what happens to you? What you know? So I would want more of a, to go deeper into that world of the immigration, of the drug part that came up at the end. I mean, the poisoning part of the film is interesting, but I think for me, I would love more, especially now, more in-depth look at what's happening at our borders, more specifically. And yeah, and if there could be some social change that could develop from it, but just, you know, there's a need to tell the story now, and it changes now, and I would love to see that reflected in the newer version of it. You know, so much has happened, so many things that are so relevant. But yeah, again, our job to tell the stories. So some things are just so out of our control, but that would, if I had that chance, I'd like to go a little further with it, for sure.
Well, I think that, you know, it is, you said, what if we were to make it now? Well, we did make it now. I mean, it is now. It is now is when it was supposed to be done. In terms of if you wanted something else in the movie, or, you know, to add something else, you know, there's good guys and bad guys in life, and there's good guys and bad guys in this movie. And, you know, I think that, you know, you're one of the Latinos that is a good guy, right? Your character.
Yeah.
And even Carlos, I know you say you would have wanted your character to be more involved, but I think you represent that character, right? You represent that individual that is detached. You didn't, because that exists as well. I think what maybe we didn't show is that there are also bad guys on the other side of the border that take advantage and exploit the people because they're desperate. And there's that aspect as well. So, you know, it's a very complicated issue, and there's good guys and bad guys on both sides of the border and on both sides of this issue. And it's going to take a lot for us to resolve it. But, you know, I hope that a movie like this will be an impetus for that to happen. That's what we do, right? We tell stories that are contemporary, so that we can, like Didi said, you know, they make us think, and they make us hopefully move us to action.
And the reason why we're here is because all the direct messages and everything was directly toward that. Like, everybody felt so moved from every angle. Like, I'm just talking about like all kinds, like, you know, Latinos, Americans, like, you know, Europeans, everybody that watched it. By the way, I say Europeans because even though the movie's not released in Europe, they did a Zoom party and they actually watch it through a screen. so it was pretty cool. And I was really humbled by it. That's why I was like, I have to answer their questions, because we really did something. And it says a lot about, you know, the stories that we tell, and we really are responsible for this part of humanity. It's not Disneyland humanity. It's dark, the dark side, which is, unfortunately, for the past year we've been dealing with that so much. So being educated about that, and seeing some sort of and also entertained too, right? We don't want to just like put so much entertain, educate, and inspired. It's really kind of like what our job is. That's why we're like a circus. We just show up and we're just like, okay, we're gonna make movie magic. But this is basically the questions I wanted to hear it from you guys. You know, I didn't want to answer none of this from my perspective. It's too much, because I feel like each one of you brought so much to the table. And even like those little tiny moments that Chief Collins had, like, you had no idea that we all felt it, for example. Like, that's something that I kind of felt I wanted to bring up, and I didn't know that led to something else. You know, those are things that you're like, wow, that's that's interesting. It's and it says a lot about, you know, the everything that we've done is we are on the right side, on the right path. Thank you guys.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Nana.
Nana.
Thank
I
you.
see you
will-
all.
Beautiful,
Yes.
beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
all.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
for
Be
Thank
good,
coming
you,
please.
over.
See you
Janai.
guys.
Thank you,
Bye,
Dee.
guys.